distinguished President of the IESL, guests, engineers, fellows, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Now this video we just saw, and especially at a day that we are commemorating the contributions of engineer Wimalasurendra in the auditorium that is named after him, Wimalasurendra Auditorium, is a very special day. And all of us know what he has done for our country. The country is right now also we are benefiting him. He is no longer there. He passed away 71 or 72 years ago. But still, his thoughts are generating wealth to the country. And that's the legacy that he left. So, the best that we can do for him is follow the footpath that he showed us. The lessons he taught without lectures, but by practice. Now we need to identify, because he didn't keep on lecturing or writing the books at least at that time, giving the lessons, but all from his actions and whatever he practiced, we can guess the lessons that he showed us. And today what I'm trying to tell you is, by analyzing what he did, I'm trying to discuss with you how and what strategies he followed to make such huge achievements, so that we too can follow and then at least be closer to him and then bring this nation into a different place. Now, he is known as a person who saw light in the rivers. He is a person who is detailed as the father of hydroelectricity in Sri Lanka. With all that, that's what he did. Now, even without him, what he can do right now through his lessons to this nation is enormous. So we need to learn those lessons. The first thing that he showed us through his own practices is the vision he had. The moment he saw the waterfalls, we admire the beauty when we see the waterfalls. But beyond that, he saw making a nation more prosperous with the water that is flowing down and then going to the sea without making any other contribution other than the agriculture. So when he came out with this vision, it was bothering him so much. And he thought and thought and thought. The first thing that he did, as we were told, was making that small mini hydro plant in Nuvarelia. So there he showed that the first mini hydro in this country, there he showed that lights can be lit with, or bulbs can be lit with just water. So that's a vision which really changed the nation's destiny. With all what we followed so many other wrong policies in this country, which made the country bankrupt. But if we followed policies like what engineer Wimalasurendra showed us, this country would never have come up with that place. Even without him, this country, what we faced a couple of years back, the bankruptcy would have been worse if he did not produce hydropower. Imagine the number of energy that these hydropower projects would have been giving us all these years. Imagine if we had to spend foreign exchange buying kerosene oil or coal or whatever from abroad. And that's a very powerful vision. He went out of the box. The traditional way of producing energy at that time was either kerosene oil or maybe coal or whatever that was imported during especially the colonial times. But then, thinking out of the way, out of the box, when hydroelectricity was not a common thing, he showed everybody that different things can be done. So it's again thinking out of the box. So as engineers, we have to go out of our traditional ways of thinking. Completely go out of traditional ways of thinking. Whenever new engineers come to our company, the first thing I tell them is Don't follow just the rules or practices in this company. Just think that those are not right. See how you can improve it. That's the first advice the new engineers get from me when they enter. I mean, we just ask them to follow some rules. What is the idea of their brains then? They'll have to think in a different way. So when fresh brains come in, it has to be allowed to think independently. So today, thinking of these lessons, the first, let us keep in mind, let us think in a different way. So to go to the next slide, again, this is what I explained, vision ahead of time. This vision that he came up, which was in 1918, as you were told, you saw in the video also, and our president explained very well. He, with just a vision, he just not couldn't do anything. As you know very well, he tried many times. He came to the then, it was not IESL at that time, it was probably a different name. It was not institution even. Ceylon Engineering Association, and then came out with these papers. Nothing worked. Just papers don't just work. Papers were given. He kept on pushing the governments. Nothing worked. He became a politician, but he was certain about his vision. He followed it and followed it and followed it. When he saw the bureaucrats coming against him, he went to the council and then gave up the government job and went there. All because he was following that dream. So it is, again, the clarity. He was sure of what he is following up. Whenever we have a dream, it's very important to have clarity. Sometimes we have dreams and we try to chase it with no clarity. Even in our job descriptions, if we are not 100% certain of what we are expected to do, we may produce the real results. We will produce some results. But then, without a clear vision, very specific clear vision, can anything be done? This is a very good example of how a clear vision, crystal clear, water turned into electricity. Whether people support or not, he wanted that happen. The vision was very clear. So, another lesson that we are going to learn is the clarity. We need to really be very specific, clear in every vision, everything what we decide to achieve. If we don't have clarity, we are not going to go anywhere. We'll go somewhere halfway. But the crystal clear or definition or explanation or knowledge of the clarity will take us to the right destination. So let's look at the other one. Again, we discussed about a vision, going out of the box and having a vision, the clarity. Then of course, nothing can be done without resistance. You try to do anything, sometimes people laugh. I can imagine in my company, once we were putting up a building and we were having a meeting with so many engineers. There were electrical engineers, there were the civil engineers who were doing the buildings, and we had a problem of getting the electricity into the workstations. So I didn't like various cables dropping, and I said, well, it looks ugly. Can't we have those cables unseen come into the workstations? So then the electrical engineer said, then of course we need to have a false flow. By that time, the ceiling had taken about another 2 feet or 3 feet of our space from the top, because the air conditioning ducts were on top of that. It was not that enough to put up a false flow. So I was thinking, think about it. Isn't there any way? So people said, no, that's the only way, and then there was no way out. One of the officers there, who was our accountant, person in charge of the finance department, what he said is, so why don't you Why don't we take it from the ground, flow underneath, drill some holes and take it out? Because underneath was just another sort of a small factory which is not that worried about the aesthetics. Everybody laughed the moment he said it, ridiculed him. But at the end of the day, people realized, but that's the right thing to do. And that's how we did. And even today, the office runs beautifully with no cables to be seen, everything taken under the next, from the next floor in a duct and then taken up from the right place. So all these are different ways, but overcoming resistance and being resilient is extremely important. Even in our journey, even as an entrepreneur, it was not easy. There had been times that we had to be very resilient, even without orders. There was a time I can remember we had no orders some time back. That was maybe I'm talking about 25, 30 years ago story. I would have had probably around 30, 35 employees during that time. And when we had no work, we were thinking now how to feed these staff. Even 30 people, they have to pay salaries with little work. We were finding it difficult. This was going on and on and on. But then I was not ready to give up. Easiest thing is to give up that industry, close it, and then do something else. But I was sure we were doing the right thing, right product, making the right product, doing the right thing. Demand has come down. So I had two challenges. One is to keep the people, because I saw somebody writing an application to leave the company because there was no work. So important thing is to keep the people. And the other thing is to find work. So all what I did, I went and then got some various sports goods like badminton rackets, carom boards, drafts boards and all that. Went to the little workplace we had and told them, play. Took some books. I said, read. Come to work on time, read, play, and enjoy. We'll find work someday. But for me, I still didn't have a plan, but I was confident we hang on and we'll find it. One day, early morning, this idea came to my mind. Why not we start exporting? The demand has come down here. So my wife and I, next day morning, went to the BOI and inquired about setting up a factory there. And that's how we started these export operations in the Katunayaka Free Trade Zone. That made us grow and export to the world. Because we didn't have enough demand here, without giving up, we were resilient and then found ways of doing things more. So this resilience is something that he showed. When years and years and years, when nobody was helping him to start with hydropower, did engineer Wimalasurendra give up? No. He did everything possible until he was successful. So today, we are going to have this determination never to give up. Never to give up. In whatever we follow, we'll find a way out. If the vision is clear, there is always a way out, reaching there. So we don't have to just stop halfway. The lesson of resilience, third lesson, is a very important thing that he showed us. Another important thing, especially for engineers, even as leaders, may it be political leaders, this can apply. The next one is mastery. When you look at engineer Wimalasurendra, he was a specialist. He knew his electrical engineering, he knew his civil engineering, both very well. So nobody can play the fool with him. He knew what he was talking about. So when we want to do something new, first thing is for us to know what we are doing. So if we try first to learn and then do the things, it becomes more clear and more straightforward. You will not get lost in between. You can always acquire knowledge. There had been cases where we had to acquire knowledge. The proper knowledge can be acquired. But still, it's again mastery. Acquiring knowledge is again mastery. There had been times, these are all things that even we can practice it every day. There was a time that in our industry, we have to find a certain product for us to maintain our quality standards. We were buying from various places in the world. One shipment we get to the quality we want, the other one, that is again not there. Something is wrong. We tried for some time, it didn't work. Then we started getting from China, first from India, then from China. First, super quality products came the first shipment. The second shipment, again, there were lots of rejects. But then we can't be supplying such things to our customers. Products made with such low quality things, we can't supply to our customers. So I was talking to the Chinese guys. I said, I'll train somebody to train you on quality, and sent one of our engineers, an expert on quality, and then kept him there for 1 month for him to train the people. Nothing worked. So finally, I decided we'll make it here. But how? I didn't have the expertise. I was not having that knowledge to make those products. That's again, we're not talking of mastery. Knowledge can be acquired. Whether it's acquired, learned, or whatever way you gain, that mastery has to be there. And finally, and especially there's one other thing, when you're really clear about what you want to know, you will see, you start seeing the sources where you can acquire this knowledge. And I found a few people who had the knowledge, recruited them, got them into our company, and then we sourced the necessary machines, put up buildings, acquired land, put up buildings, and made that factory. And that's how things we do when we don't know how to make something, you acquire it, or first learn it, or at least get it from outside. The knowledge is important. As engineers, we are all masters in something. We know our engineering in some areas. Wherever we don't know, we can have synergies. We can get together with other engineers and then join our knowledge together, do many things. Again, it comes to mastery. Something that we need to learn from this great engineer, Wimalasurendra. These are all lessons that he showed us with experience. Now, he was not just knowledgeable about his hydropower. You heard about the railway track and how he made it. As a civil engineer, his knowledge. But he was an exceptional case with a lot of knowledge. Maybe he studied and then he discussed with people. At that time, there was no internet. Maybe libraries, and then discussions, visit to other countries, seeing those things, and learning by observation. So with all that, again, he has mastered his subject. Whatever we do, try to go to the extreme end and make sure that you have to be excellent in that process. Excellence is something which I really love. Maybe I have been following engineer Wimalasurendra from my childhood. I would have noted those things from him. My previous bosses in this audience, Mr. Parakrama Jayasinghe, for whom I worked for many years. I always call him the best boss I ever had, because he realized the value of me. Whatever I did to the extreme, the best of my ability. And always he was very happy about whatever I produced. So I told this because it's so important. May it be handling of people, may it be making of products, may it be of anything. If I do anything, my first thing is doing it to the extreme end. Extreme excellence is the word that we need to keep in mind for mastery of anything. That really, even the company was, KIK company I had no idea of setting up an industry. When I resigned, I resigned because I wanted to have a little free time to start another small business. But I was forced by one of the customers to manufacture and give him certain things. When I said I have resigned from the company, I'm sorry, I have no way of doing it. He visited me at my home, put a lot of money on my table, and he said, you helped me to acquire this project when I was there. Now don't say that you have resigned. I took that project trusting you. I said, well, there are enough people. I will introduce to you many people who can do it. I have trained people who can do it. Please give it to them. He shouted at me and said, no. I trusted you and got it, and I want you to do it. And he just put the money on the table, and I said, I don't have anything. He said, that's your problem. Give me the products from somewhere. So I was forced to start an industry, and that's how truly KIK started. So these are all real stories of seeking to making excellence. You master the subject, whatever you do. Go to the extreme end, make the right product. Lakshapavana power station is still giving us energy. Look at the excellence that he has produced. The visions, the excellence. So these are things that we need to really keep in mind. There's no halfway doing, no making low quality things. All need to be excellent. Now, the next thing that we go is about advocacy. You can have good visions, you can have the best knowledge, you should be able, you'll have the capability of making excellent products, master of anything. But what if you don't get support from the government, from the authorities, or from the others? That's where you need to really convince the others. How many of us do that? We always blame the politicians and say, when we tell the politicians they don't do it. It's up to us to push them, to convince them, to tell them this is the way that has to be done. These are lessons that these great engineers taught us. Again, as I said, not by lectures, not with lectures. He didn't come to universities and lecture, but he did it practically and showed us, learn from me. He didn't say that, but then it is up to us to learn from him. That is the best tribute that we can pay him, by following what he taught us, what he showed us, doing the same thing and taking this nation into a different level. We should be able to convince others. We should be able to convince people, show things in a different way. Yesterday I was asked to come and be the keynote speaker of an upcoming, the launch of curtain raise of an event called Global Economic and Technology Summit, which will be held in November. So that was great, fairly big gathering at the Kingsbury Hotel. And all of them were talking about bringing some investors here. So in my keynote speech, what I told them is, this country, don't bring people to invest here to supply into this country. Look at it in a different way. And then I showed the audience and the organizers that from Sri Lanka, anything can be sent to more than 50% of the world's population, more than 50% of the world's consumers within 5 hours by air or 5 days by sea. Who else can do that? And I said, those days when we used to buy various things, we used to go to Polar. Even to buy the commodities, you go to the Polar or the market or a shop and buy things. And that's those days. But now things are different. With the speed and convenience that business is happening. Now we just take the phone and then order it online. Couple of minutes later, the goods come here. The speed and again the convenience. So the speed and convenience that can be offered from Sri Lanka needs to be showcased to the people who are coming here. So end of the speech, the organizers came and said, you showed us the way to convey the message to the people for them to come here. Because they also realize that from nowhere in the world, people can make something or trading or services or whatever and make something and then supply within 5 hours by air or 5 days by sea. This is such a unique position we have. We showed this as a marketplace. And then as a result, country went bankrupt. Within 20 years from the year 2002, by way of trade deficit, we lost $128 billion. And we went a few years back. But we forgot that we lost 128 billion in 20 years just with wrong policies. And you would just blame the politicians about corruption. That's a different figure probably. I have not worked out. I don't know how to work out that figure. But the figures that you can work out with the central bank statistics is the losses we made, you and I made by trading with foreign countries. These are the things that we did not push the governments to change. I had been doing it for a couple of times, but my force had not been enough. Many people started laughing at me. My good friend, Dr. Howard Nicholas, who is a famous economist, had been saying this for a long time. He was born in this country because his father was the superintendent of the Gikinagan estate when he was born. He is my age. And because of that, he loved this country. He had been coming and saying for many years, you have been taught wrong economics. Now, don't just follow what had been taught in the books. All this is all nonsense. If you do like this, if you search for with his name, Howard Nicholas, and say development banks, you'll find a nice clip that he was talking in 2017, saying how development banks was deprived for Sri Lanka. Again, wrong theories. So we need to come out as engineers, we need to be very innovative and come out with the right thing and advocate and then push it through with a lot of force. IESL as an organization, we can all get together and push anything as long as our purpose is clear and we have a noble purpose. We'll all get together for that whenever we have to push something really hard in the right direction. We have a huge membership here. We need to make use of them to push the governments in the right direction, not just to follow whatever people say. We have to show the way and then convince them, like engineer Wimalasurendra did long time back. He tried his best to just tell the governments, didn't work, went into the government and then tried various strategies until he really did it. So similarly, advocacy is something as engineers we need to master. Without that, things will not happen. We just can't say, okay, we told that then they didn't do. But end of the day, what has happened? Nothing has been done. So if you have to do things, we have to make it happen. Again, that's what he taught us. The next thing, nothing can be done alone. As engineers, we need to work as teams. This solo work never works. Maybe for a lawyer, somebody it might work sometimes, but that also I'm not sure in the present context whether that will work even. But then, as engineers, whenever we have things, we need people. They have to convince others. We need to really get things done, convince people. There was a time that we get people around and then tell them, do this. That era is completely gone. Nobody works on orders now. At any level, may it be even a shop floor person or a laborer, you need to inspire them to work. You just can't pay some money and say, just go and do this. Maybe 1 or 2% people will be like that, but the rest have to be inspired. People work with inspiration. They work with will. They work with their heart put into the things. These are all things engineer Wimalasurendra, whenever he did projects, you can see how devotedly people worked when the floods killed so many people in Lakshapana. People sacrificed their lives for this great person's vision. They were all so dedicated. They didn't mind whether it's day or night. They were inspired to follow this vision, and they worked. And again, a good lesson for us to keep in mind. Whenever we are doing something, we need to really know how to build our own teams. Team building is a must. If we try to do something on our own, it will be a failure. A legacy. The legacy that engineer Wimalasurendra created today is still alive. We all have the lights from our hydropower stations with the vision that he had. He pioneered. He pushed with a lot of force and put it to action. Now, what is your vision? What is your vision, and what is the legacy that we are going to leave to the next generation? As engineers, we have a duty to create the future for the next generations. IESL need to play a huge role in driving that, getting people to get activated and then work for a vision. These are the way that we can pay our respect to this great engineer, Wimalasurendra. The way he did things, we learn from him, just follow his footsteps, and that's the best that we can do. Think about what you can do for this nation, for us to create a legacy that will go beyond our lives. The next generations will be benefited with that. We don't have to even limit to this renewable power. It can be even different things. Today you start thinking, what legacy are we going to leave? What legacy am I going to leave for the next generations? We all have the capability. We all have equal capabilities of what engineer Wimalasurendra had. It's a matter of how we put everything together, how we put things together and then do things. I see some lack of our being together. Sometimes we still try to do things on our own. It doesn't work. Always teamwork plays. The lessons that we learned today, I discussed today, are the secrets of success of engineer Wimalasurendra. For us to pay real tribute to him, we must remember these 7 principles that he followed. Thinking out of the box, as I first mentioned. Just don't think of the standard traditions. Out of traditional ways, you think in a different way. Clarity, very clear of whatever we are saying or imagining. Not a blurred vision. It has to be crystal clear. Resilience. Are we ready to give up? No. If you give up, huge problem. I don't know, for some reason, from my childhood, I had no idea of giving up. Never. When I first saw my wife, when I went to see her. I fell in love with the first sight, and then she said, no, I don't like him. So complete rejection. Of course, if I have used to give up, I would have given up and then found a different partner. But then, once I set my mind in, I just can't give up. So after a few days of persuasion, here she is with me today, after 43 years too. So that's the power of persuasion. So don't think it's something that you need to really think small. Mastery. Due to the extreme men, master whatever you are doing or acquire the knowledge. Advocacy. We should be able to convince the others. All these are very important. These 7 lessons were the secret of his success. That's how he did so many things. We have to really remember, are we following these things? Where are we lacking? Think about whatever happened in your lives and see, where did I miss? How you collaborate with each other, how you get your people to partner with you, and what legacy are you going to create to the next generation. All what we can think and pray today is Engineer Wimalasurendra saw light in our waterfalls. May we too have the innovative visions and have the courage and resilience to turn those into reality. If we keep this in mind, that's the biggest tribute we can pay to this great leader, Engineer Wimalasurendra. For us, we need to pay tribute to him, and that tribute we will pay by just following his footsteps. I wish you all good luck.